Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by two friends who love cinema. I'm Gus, and I'm joined by my co-host Alvaro. Tonight, you will be staying in room 153, Triangle of Sadness, the satirical comedy directed by Ruben Östlund. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we enjoy a wildly entertaining roller coaster ride with Triangle of Sadness.
A Russian capitalist and an American communist.
On a $250 million luxury yacht.
What is going on, all my saddies? Thank you for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. Tonight, we'll be discussing one of the funniest films of the year. I'm joined by Alvaro.
What's up, guys?
And we're here to discuss Triangle of Sadness, the latest film by Ruben Östlund. What year are we in? 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 2022 Palme d'Or winner, Alvaro. First impressions. Did you like this movie?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I do think it's interesting. I wanted to point out that this is the second movie that we've done, I guess, because it's the second year we've been doing the podcast, the Palme d'Or winners. The first episode we did, which was Titan last year. So this film having won, I remember when the first one I had mentioned to you or texted you, I wonder how long it'll take us to watch this. I actually didn't think it happened this year, so I'm kind of glad that we watched it a couple months after it had won. And yeah, I did really enjoy this film. I think we've kind of talked about on this podcast a lot that comedy seems to be something that we don't really get much of, and I know this is a little different because it seems to be honestly more European comedy, and they do have a different style of humor, honestly. And I don't think that's something that's like a hard take or anything, but I did really enjoy this because I thought just really shot really well, and I did really think everybody here kind of plays an archetype really well, and I think the acting just really shows off by certain characters, and I just really enjoyed the chemistry in this film. So
Yeah, I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about the film based off the trailers that we had seen. I know we did see it a couple times. Did you see it quite a bit? I mean, you went to the movies a lot more than I did this year, so I know I saw this at least once or twice with you, but do you remember seeing it a lot?
yeah, I think this is just my third time watching, or like the time before this yesterday watching it for the podcast. So
No, I mean the trailer. Like,
oh,
did you
the
see
trailer. Oh, yeah,
or not?
yeah. Sorry, yeah, the trailer. Honestly, I don't think I saw it as much as I saw the trailer for like The Menu and other movies that we've talked about. I think it had died off over a little. Like I wasn't beat over the head with it.
Okay. Do you feel like you had any like preconceived notions going into the movie of like what you thought it would be about versus what it's actually about? Or did you not really know what to expect?
I didn't know really what to expect because I had never seen another one of his films, and I hadn't honestly really looked into the director too much. I looked more into it after this film, so I didn't really know what to expect for this one.
All right. I really did enjoy this film. I don't know if I would think of it as like the best film of the year. And the only reason I say that is because, like you said, we talked about Titan, which won the Palme d'Or, and the year before was Parasite. So these are two very, very important movies to the podcast. I think they're two of the best movies I've seen in recent memory. I would say Parasite's one of the best movies of all time. I don't think that's crazy to say, honestly.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I had a preconceived notion about the film itself, but just the exclusivity of the award, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if we're talking about the same category as Titan and Parasite, I'm kind of expecting a lot. And I do think my expectations were met to a certain point, but I don't know if I would think of this as like my top 5 or maybe top 10. I don't know. I would really have to think about it. But I do think that this is still like a worthy movie of the praise that it's getting. I don't think that it's being overblown or anything like that. I do think that this movie, if anything, is actually kind of being underrated. Like I think more people would like this if it was if it had been more widely seen. And now that it's on demand, which is how I watched it, I think the steam's going to pick back up for it, honestly.
I 100% agree with your take, honestly. I think something that's detriment to this film, the only thing that I would say on a second or third watch is I do see that it could be long. I don't know if necessarily, again, comedies should tend to be this long. And I think that's where I kind of talk about the difference in comedic styles. And I think maybe a European audience where this is held maybe finds this even more even funnier than I do. There's a lot of moments here that I do think are really hilarious, but I think overall some of it maybe it's because we've seen a lot of movies this year. We talked about they kind of talk about the class and social structure and everything. So maybe I feel like this is like, man, how many movies about this are we going to see? But maybe in Europe, this seems like a movie that's a little bit more like needed, you know?
Yeah, maybe. I actually have an interesting anecdote off of that statement that you just made about like the European audience and stuff like that. I just found it really, I don't know if I would say refreshing, but it was just something I wouldn't have expected Ruben Östlund to say. It was that for this movie in particular, he thinks that it played better with American audiences than a European audience. And the reason he said that was because he views American audiences as more willing to be entertained and more willing to go along with a premise, no matter how ridiculous it might be, versus maybe the uppityness of the art house European style, or how European crowds kind of go into a movie with their arms crossed and their noses raised and like impress me or make this make sense. You know what I mean? That they are a lot more combative in how they view films. But the other thing that it made me think of, which I guess it kind of has to do with his ironic directing style and his like the irony of the script of this movie, is for him to even make that statement when he won the Palme d'Or. It's like, you've already gotten one of the highest praises you can in Europe. Yeah. And now you're upset that, European audiences are kind of snooty. And this rhetoric is usually saved for like the MCU, like Simu Liu complaining about the statements of Tarantino and Scorsese. And it's like, isn't it enough that you are in a $400 million plus movie and now you need to be complaining about how it's the best movie and how actually it's the only thing that should exist, you know? So I just think it's funny that Östlund would say something like that when it fits so perfectly with the tone and the themes of this movie, of the hypocrisy of some people. It's like, you've already gotten the most praise and now you still want to complain about how you're not getting enough praise for this movie.
he wants what Marvel has. They want the critical acclaim, and he's like, no, I want the tickets, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is just a topic that we talk about a lot, is the differences in American audiences versus European audiences and that point of view. And Östlund has stated multiple times in his press tour for this movie that he wanted it to be a wild, entertaining roller coaster ride for adults. And I mean, that just goes hand in hand even more with the Scorsese stuff of him calling Marvel movies roller coaster rides and entertainment, But I just think it's funny that he won this prestigious award, but he's like, you guys are not seeing this the way I see this. Yeah, this is just a stupid, funny movie. Yeah. And you keep trying to throw this, like, that it's supposed to be an intellectual highbrow movie on me, and I don't feel that way at all. So I thought the way that this movie was marketed and the quotes, around it when it came out, like, I was expecting some, European art house, this is how I feel about society type movie. And I actually do think this movie has more American sensibilities than it does European, which I found interesting. And I know that he said that was another reason why he wanted to make this movie in all English, because it's his only movie that's been completely in English.
I that's interesting, because I guess the audiences didn't feel that way here, but maybe that's why it's doing not so well. But yeah, like I said, this stand out to me because the comedy isn't really there in any of the other movie that I watched this year. And I think we'll talk about it a little later in terms of some of the physical disgustingness that's in this movie. But yeah, I mean, I find that really interesting that you bring that up, and that's not something I'm usually used to hearing with the director from Europe. They tend to be more.
I found Ruben Östlund to be very generous with his conversation surrounding the movie. One of the hard parts of this podcast not to complain or anything, but one of the hard parts of doing new movies is that the information is not so easily accessed when you're trying to cover a movie 3 days after it came out. But watching like the con whatever press tours and some of his like some of just his appearances that he made like on podcasts or interviews and things like that, I found him to be very giving with his explanation of the movie, and I do think it helped me enjoy it more because, you know, like you said, maybe people are expecting something different, and I actually find him quite entertaining to listen to as a director. I do appreciate when there, you know, there's like the Tarantinos of the world or the Spielbergs or like even like someone like Ruben Östlund, where they're very giving with how the meat is made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or how the sausage is made or whatever.
Right.
So I did find that very very helpful for me with this movie, like him being so open about you know, just talking about the movie.
Yeah. I do find it interesting though that he just is saying he's playing more for Americans, but he did get that European validation.
Yeah, because I can guarantee this will probably be shut out at the Academy Awards. It might win.
Yeah, exactly.
It might win Best Foreign Picture, but, you know, I would root for The Banshees of Inisherin, or I'm sure you've seen Decision to Leave. I'm sure you think that might have a chance, right?
Yeah, I think that's between those two, personally.
Oh, like yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really say I haven't seen more than a handful of foreign films this year, but I do know that those are hot topics in the film community right now.
I think this will get nominated, and I think that'll be its high praise. And if it doesn't, then oh well. But I do think the ones you're talking about, you know, Banshees and Decision to Leave, might, so far, I think for the Academy, probably would be their favorites.
Future plug for episodes that will be coming soon, by the way. Another thing that I found interesting about just like how Ruben Östlund was very open with this movie was that he's very big into sociology, right? So that with his movies, he wants to play around with with social experiments, you know, and he feels like this movie was he picked 3 attractive worlds that he found just to be deeply interesting and wanted to dissect how people would react in these unusual circumstances, and that in his private life he's a very, very social person, and he's very collaborative and loves just discussing ideas and just conversing with people. He's very big on that. So he uses his movies to kind of say the things that he really, you know, wonders deep down. Like, what would happen if these ultra rich people ended up on this deserted island and the cleaning lady ended up becoming the most powerful person? Because that's not something that, you know, maybe people don't really have a night out at dinner or at a bar and discuss topics like these.
Yeah.
So he uses these films as a way to just really come up with this absurd, just ridiculous circumstances, which I found to be really entertaining.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's a comedy, you know, and that's why I think it's a dark comedy in certain ways. But even to his argument, he'd probably take out the dark. It's just a comedy because it's such a ridiculous circumstance, and that isn't something or a kind of anecdote that we usually get for a lot of films, or a director's motive to do a lot of films.
Yeah, so then tying that with the sociological stuff, he said he wanted to I think maybe one of the criticisms about this movie is the unwillingness to take a side. He kind of has that same thing that we talked about with The Menu, the South Park approach of every single one of you is fucking stupid, whether you're rich or poor, you all are exactly the same at the end of the day. I get that that's kind of like a fence-sitting position, but I think that he views this more as human flaws than things that are just held up by like social structures and class.
Yeah, it's just
like that. This flipping of the power structure just goes to show you that like these people are really not that different. They just don't have the opportunity to be as shitty as the ultra rich would be.
Yeah, exactly. This is really out of topic just because I think it kind of validates the point that you were making. But I was seeing that there is a couple things with, like, you know how Rihanna has her own brand?
Yeah.
And so like how they're apparently suing her because she was like taking customers' money. And then that kind of reminds you of what you're talking about. Like, we kind of always validate people because maybe they look like me, or they kind of have the same thoughts as me, or they like the same things as me, and they wouldn't be like that if they were in that position. But then here you have like somebody who why would Rihanna do that? And maybe it's not directly her, but you don't become a billionaire by being a good person.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like,
even like Ruben Östlund, he stated that like, I am a rich person, so even for me to be making this movie is kind of hypocritical, you know. But another, you know, one of the big themes in this movie is capitalism versus socialism and Marxist ideas, right? I wouldn't say that this is like the deepest place to it's not, you know, it's not the deepest well. It's not really what the movie's about. It's more of the just kind of holding a mirror up to people, right? Like, I keep telling you that it reminds me of like a video on Jubilee that like you would see on a Hassan broadcast, you know what I mean? Of like American Marxist versus Russian capitalist. They're not so different, question mark. You know? Socialism is when no yachts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, a character like Woody Harrelson is quite hypocritical. You know, you're this American Marxist, but you're the captain of a luxury cruise ship. You know, he could be working on the fucking ships in a union. You know what I mean? But no, he doesn't. He takes this money, you know, and then like the Russian capitalist pig, you know, the self-proclaimed king of shit.
King of shit.
These are just really fucking funny ways of looking at people and how, you know, we have these preconceived notions and perspectives of how we're supposed to view people, right? But this is more of a flaw in our social structure than it like that we're trying to cope with, you know?
Yeah.
So like, one of the like the silly ideas in this movie is that like, oh well, the poor people are obviously going to be nice, right? And obviously rich people are egotistical maniacs, and it just goes to show you that as soon as that position can be swapped, that guess what? It'd be like everybody's exactly the same, which is, I guess, not really even having a take. It's just kind of presenting it, but I understand that because he wanted to see it as a sociological experiment, that when you're viewing it from that mind frame, that sociology is kind of like how we view animals. You know, we're trying to understand the behavior. You don't go, oh, it's because this person's poor, that's why they act like that. Oh, it's because this person is rich. We see it as human behavior and like flaws in human behavior.
Correct.
So I do think that might be a reason why people are kind of veering away from the messaging in this movie.
Yeah, they're trying to, because it seems to play in the middle, like you said. And I do find it interesting because after you had seen the movie, it kind of talked to me about the character Carl, right? And I think he's just so heavy-handedness and kind of taking the position of a lot of guys that currently like, oh, I feel this way, you know what I mean? And I think that's what the movie does really well. It presents a lot of point of views, and like you said, at the end of the day, Ruben Östlund's just saying, if you throw everybody in this ridiculous idea where if the powerful people, money is what they make, right? Like, money is what moves them forward and makes them important. You throw that factor away. If the person who made this terrible invention, if that's the way that they also die, it's just so much humor in that. And so
it's
like,
very silly. Like that might sound degrading, but it's not. Like, it is a very silly movie.
And it's tied into what you talk about. It's just all human nature, because it seems to all be tied into, you'll do anything for profit, or on the reverse side, you'll do anything for power, and every person seems to want to just be doing stuff to get either more power or more money or whatever gives you more power.
You know, even that point right now that you just made of like doing it for profit, right? You know, so in one of his interviews, he was asked, how do you get like American distributors to want to be involved in a film like this when you're basically shitting on them? You know, they're part of this ultra rich, 1%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, the beautiful thing about capitalism is that they will do anything that sells profit or that makes profit, even make fun of themselves. If it is worth it to them to make fun of themselves because they can make a few $1 million, they're gonna fucking do it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the he was like, that's one of the positives of capitalism. And I do think it was interesting because, you know, he was raised by a communist mother, and he had an older brother who was more on the right. So he just grew up with a lot of these ideas from both sides being thrown around, so that he sees the movie and like his kind of message on it is that like Well, I'll just get to this now. Okay, so the character that Woody Harrelson plays and the other character,
Shit ton.
this is my favorite character in the whole movie. He's portrayed by Zlatko Burik. His name is Dmitry.
Dmitry,
He's a Russian oligarch, the self-proclaimed king of shit, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a good character.
these two characters, right? They're very symbolic of what the movie is about, because these two characters are debating back and forth, right? But they're so diametrically opposed that they see each other like almost like sports teams, where there's no way that there's anything you could say to me that is going to get me to even see your point of view. But if, in a perfect utopia, if these two ideas came together to like benefit society, that would be the mutually beneficial thing.
Yeah.
But that, humans are the way they are. So it's no, my team, your team, my team, your team. So
There's always a counterpoint to the other one's point of like why I shouldn't listen to you.
yeah, and I mean it's like that about everything.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
really is human nature. MCU versus indie, left versus right, my sports team, your sports team. It's just fucking human nature, and it really does feel like a flaw in our design.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about the cast, or well, I guess we should do the synopsis first, right?
Yeah.
So-
I could read it.
Go ahead.
So it says models Carl and Yaya are invited for a luxury cruise with the rogues gallery of super rich passengers. At first, all appears Instagrammable, but the cruise ends catastrophically and the group find themselves marooned on a desert island.
Yeah, so the film has a wonderful cast. I do think that with Oslin's sense of humor and his comedic angle, that he has a perfect cast to really sell these points, you
Right.
know? And we could start with Carl and Yaya, if you don't mind, right?
Yeah.
Because they're kind of our entry point into this world. So, like you said, they're a young model influencer couple, and the movie starts with its takedown of the fashion industry,
Mhm.
right? And I was just doing my research, and the idea sprouted once Oslin got married, because his wife is a famous fashion photographer. So he learned about the beauty, or the currency of beauty, and how this world is just so different than like most other like career fields. Like the male models are referred to as male models. They make 1/4 the salary or the pay of a female model. Like it's one of the few, modeling is like one of the few worlds and beauty itself that can actually like raise your status in the world, and the other two are like money and education, right? Like
Correct.
you can educate yourself and get into a higher class, or you can be born into money and that automatically puts you in a higher class. But beauty is really the only other thing that can
Boost you.
really just fucking change your life.
Exactly.
So, we're dealing with that in the beginning of this movie. We have our character Carl. I think he's an insanely insecure man, right? And you kind of mentioned it earlier of a character like him is supposed to kind of encapsulate the modern man, right? And the feelings that are being, I wouldn't say like oppressed, but you want to hear men's feelings until you hear men's feelings, and then you're like, oh fuck. Like,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
I will say, I think just to kind of carry on what you're saying about his character, Carl, I think that he's obviously being a male model, he's an embodiment of what people would assume is peak male beauty, right? And there comes this insecureness of when you look that way. Is he could look that way, but he ends up being jealous about everything. And I found it interesting because I told you I was watching it with my brother, but we were watching the movie, and he told me that whenever he watches movies with dudes that look like that, it makes him feel insecure. And so but then the next scene was him being insecure, and they're like, look, I was like, the movie is commenting live on what you're telling. Like, you can look that way, but you'll always be insecure about something else, whether it be a guy that has, a completely different look than you, and you're like, now I'm insecure about that. And just for it to be such commenting on something that is very prevalent right now, with how you could look that way, but you're going to be very sensitive. And I think that is like how a lot of men feel this way, like, or it seems to be. There is a current bigger uptick with that type of
It's trending upwards.
of men that feel that way. And it is because something that comments on the other side, that Yaya's character does, like, yeah, I do just take advantage of me being beautiful, and you will just do it because I am.
Yeah, and then I mean, I feel like it's okay to talk about spoilers because this movie's a few months old, and you could watch it right now. You could stop the podcast right now and go watch this movie, which I highly recommend. But you know, we see how, you know, this movie is about the flipping of structures, right? And the flipping of societal and gender norms and all of these things. You know, Carl, as soon as that opportunity is presented to him, does all of the things that he supposedly despises
About women.
Yaya.
Yeah.
You know, he uses his beauty to climb the social structure. He, you know, takes advantage of being a beautiful young man. And, you know, it just goes back to that point of Oslin's of like, these are human flaws. These are not a good person, bad person, male, female thing that, you know, people are gonna take advantage when the opportunity is there, and that fucking sucks. Like, I'm sorry, like that. Maybe it's not a good answer to just be like, yeah, man, I don't know, we fucking suck. But
but
this is the beginning of it. You know, these two characters are just the beginning of a long list of these things happening.
I think it's human nature to want to take, like, if they present you the easy route, who doesn't want to take it? But it sucks for everybody else, but not for the person who has it.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you saw on Letterboxd, like, someone called this White Lotus, right?
White Flotus.
White Flotus. And yeah, it's very similar. I'm currently watching the second season. You know, I just finished the first, and like the White Lotus, the menu, this movie. If you're a fan of like Jubilee and like Hassan and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like these are very prevalent things going on in our in our media nowadays, of just like kind of looking at everything and being like, fuck, this is all so stupid from every fucking side.
I mean, the podcast obviously really enjoys movies, just shitting on the rich people.
Yeah, it's
as
fun.
you can tell, we're not very rich.
Oh man.
But yeah, it just, that's what I mean. It just seemed to be something, you know, kind of also talking about something that recently happened. A lot of like the whole Sight and Sound list, it seemed to do it every 10 years because it kind of just reflects on what the societal reflects on societal's like wants, or what they're showing in their movies, and what there really is prevalent in the social, you know, conversation. And I think that's if whenever they do it in 10 years for this current 10 years, it would be that there was a lot of commenting on capitalism and how all of this is really just revolving around poor people and rich people, and trying to keep poor people poor, and how all of it is a lot more similar. And I think that it's not a coincidence that there's so many films, shows, and things just kind of really addressing that in either a comedic way, in a horror aspect way, in a thriller way, or in just, you know, any kind of way that you can think of. Even animation, I'm sure, has tackled these kind of this topic. So I do find it interesting that you can get so many different depictions that we've talked about in a short span, but a director like Ruben Östlund, who has maybe a European more, you know, point of view, is gonna give me something different. And I think kind of the aspect here of giving me somebody who is even really tied to the Instagram moment and everything like that does really hit more home, because it seems like it is more made towards, you know, what is happening right now with people the age that they are in the movie.
Yeah, Carl and Yaya.
Mm-hmm.
So they round out a wonderful cast of characters. I kind of wanted to go through them. I didn't really want to talk about the movie so much, like beat for beat.
Right.
I really wanted to talk about the characters more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if anything comes up that you specifically want to mention about it, I mean, I don't feel weird jumping around.
Right. Okay.
So I did want to talk about Zlatko Buric and Sunyi Mel, or I believe that's how you say her name, as Dmitry, the Russian oligarch, and his wife Vera. I mean, we have talked about him a little bit already, but his wife, she's a very, very interesting bird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she comes off as someone who's very generous, but then when you see the kind of things that she's making the staff do, you know what I mean? Like how she's just flaunting that power of, you know, you guys basically work for me. She's fucking ridiculous, you know? Like she demands that the entire staff go swimming and enjoys themselves like as if she would, because we're not any different. I just have money. It's not my fault I have money. You know what I mean? Like, why should I feel bad about it? So I do think that she's one of the funnier characters in this movie, like among many, many others. I thought a lot of characters were funny in this movie.
I think that's where the there's certain characters in this that really take the silliness aspect for the comedic, type of factor they're going to bring in. But then there's some of like the discussion between Slotko and Woody Harrelson's character, where it does seem to more be commenting on maybe a bigger conversation in a comedic way. And I think her character, it is one of the ones where it just kind of uses more of the silliness to just really show how dumb these people are in the way that they think.
Yeah, and I do think Zlatko Burik's character, and along with Dolly De Leon's character Abigail, that they are the two sides of this movie. They are carrying the messages the most, because he's this fucking hypocritical character that you would write in a Family Guy skit of this Russian capitalist guy, right?
Correct.
And then Dolly De Leon being Abigail, a lowly cleaning lady who, when circumstances arise, she becomes the most powerful person here. I just think that they are definitely carrying the two sides of this movie, of how once the power structure's flipped, and then, with Zlatko Burik, all the just ridiculous absurdity of these type of people.
Yeah, the extremes, right? They're the extremes in this
They
film.
are the extremes. Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
We didn't mention them by name, but Harris Dickinson and Charles B. Dean, R.I.P. That's a very sad story.
Yeah.
They play Carl and Yaya. Yeah, I mean, R.I.P. I thought she gave a wonderful performance as well. It's kind of sad that we're not going to get more of her in the future.
I think that was where I kind of did feel sad about this movie. Was I did think she gave a really strong performance in this film. And I know that sometimes, kind of in the same way, you're kind of the word judged when you're really beautiful in terms of what your talent is. But I did think she really almost made fun of herself really well in this film.
Yeah, I mean, she was a model and an actress, and so she's very familiar with this world. And she actually spoke to the what it was like to be a young girl in this industry, 13 years old, being in Japan, shooting cover shoots and stuff like that, and how she was looked down upon because she was a young girl, because she didn't speak the language. She was, I don't know if anything, worse than that. She didn't really speak on that, but just that how, she's been judged her whole life on appearances, but how many people really take the time to get to know her deep down and actually see how she feels about the world? And even if you did, are you even interested? Or no, because you already have these, well, you're beautiful, life must be easy for you.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, it just feels like this movie was from such a personal place, and she really did almost make fun of herself in a way. And I think she just did a stupendous job in this, so it is really sad to just see somebody pass away.
It's like
so
when
young.
we talked about Chadwick Boseman. It was like that was another time that we've recently talked about an actor who has passed away
Unexpectedly so soon.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just weird because as a movie lover, you watch so many movies that have dead people in them, but when it's fresh and it just happens, it feels kind of like invasive. It always feels kind of weird.
Yeah, because I again, kind of commenting when I was watching this with my brother, he told me and they still released the movie, and I'm sure if you would have had the conversation with her, I think it has, she would have wanted the movie to come
It's like
out.
with Heath Ledger too, it's just like these performances become something else.
Yeah.
Especially when it's somebody's last performance. But she really did do an incredible job. I thought that she had. She was given a lot to do in this movie, and she also just did a great job carrying.
She reminds me of, because I know you recently saw it, the viewing, the horror series for Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
And the Panos one. She reminds me of the girl in that too, the way that they look.
Sophia Boutella.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's badass.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess I always thought because I like her too a lot. So I think I just wanted to see so much more roles with her in them, and I just really sad to always see that happen, especially when they're so young.
Yeah, I mean, we'll move off that. We're not just here to be sad.
Yeah, exactly.
Woody Harrelson is another cast member who gives a wonderful performance. He's only in this film for 20, 30 minutes, but it's the strongest, sequence in the movie. It's truly, truly just sickening, disgusting, hilarious. It was maybe one of my favorite scenes of the entire year. capped off
yeah.
by the hilarious debate between Harrelson and Burrick. But
Agreed.
I kind of want to talk about that scene a little bit right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, is Woody Harrelson the only American character in this movie as well?
Or the American actor in this movie?
No, just the American character.
Yeah.
An American actor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was gonna say is that's why I really appreciated that. I'm pretty sure that Ruben Östlund, like you said, knew he was kind of, after the information that you gave me, kind of wanted to make this more for an American audience. And Woody Harrelson is such a staple piece of just. He's been in a lot of great movies. He's been in a lot of funny movies, and Woody Harrelson is beloved to everybody in America.
Yeah, like I don't mean to demean him by saying this, but like he's solid. Like every time
Yeah.
he's in a movie, I'm like, oh, it's better because he's in it.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And so I just think that the fact that he chose to pick the one American to be in this, the Woody Harrelson, and have him be the captain of the ship, and have him be in such a integral scene to what I think really makes this, for me, one of a standout film for this year, which is why he kind of prefaced this whole conversation kind of talking about where we would rank this film, but I can't. I'm always having this like really hard place of where to put it, because I do think a lot of my favorite performances are in this movie, but I think sometimes some of the other movies that we watched maybe were better directed. Or
because movie's obviously not without its flaws. All movies have some flaws, and
Exactly.
I would think the pacing and the runtime are slightly part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think maybe because it's tackling like almost every theme, or not every theme, but like every societal conversation that's happening right now. It is a bit exhausting because but I still enjoy this film quite a bit.
Yeah, kind of tying back, not to kind of go out there, but tying it back to the scene that we wanted to really talk about, where Woody Harrelson is in between the 20 minutes that he's in the scene. Just really is one of my favorite scenes all year, and it's disgusting, it's comedic, it's commenting on everything that the movie's kind of talking about.
I would say it's probably one of the more heavy-handed scenes in the entire movie, because we're talking about a scene where,
it's like a dinner scene.
It's
right?
It's the captain's dinner, right?
Which he hasn't been. Woody Harrelson.
Hiding,
he's been pushing.
He's been hiding in his cabin the entire trip. No one has seen him. He hasn't really presented himself. But he chooses the roughest night of of the trip to have this dinner, which
Choppy
already
water.
kind of seems like a choice, right? This scene just goes from being awkward, a very absurd scene, to just one of the like most outlandish things I've seen in a movie in a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, this is where it becomes very. I'm just such a boy, pee poo poo. It's so funny, what I mean? And it is just always refreshing, I guess, to see how that could be pulled off well in a film that's also tackling stuff that's so much bigger than that simple type of comedy. But I do think it is as simple as that for me, that always kind of cuts down the little kid in me thinking this stuff is funny. And it's just to the people that it's happening to, you get a lot of, I think it really works, the scene, because a lot of the boat, you spend time really getting the character development because of the 2 hour and 45 runtime. You get a lot of character development even with a lot of the side characters here, which is why I do think a lot of the performances, everybody's performances in this is really good. But because you get so much of that character development, when the scene finally comes, you don't really feel for these people. And I think that's why it becomes so funny.
Yeah, you know what? Before we really dive into the scene, I feel like we should kind of round out the cast so that we can have an idea of what is who is this happening to? Is
Right.
it just rich people? Well, no, these are some of the worst people you can imagine. We have Amanda Walker and Oliver Ford Davies as Clementine and Winston, and they're an elderly couple who have made their fortune, manufacturing weapons, and their specialty is hand grenades, which comes into play later.
That conversation's so funny, the way that they have it too.
Yeah, exactly.
They just keep trying to avoid what they make, and then they're like, NATO, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And then, we have Iris Bourbon as Teresa, who's a woman who recently suffered a stroke and can only manage to still say one sentence in German, which I don't even know if I paid attention to what the sentence was.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe she's also in a wheelchair, if I'm correct.
Yeah, she is.
So I don't, maybe I missed that and I don't know as much about her, but you know, we have our influencers who I guess the crime is that they're beautiful and annoying, right? That's their giant crime against society.
I do think it's like kind of new money versus old money, right? And
yeah, it does have those. Yeah, it does have that going on. But then you know we have the Russian oligarch and his wife, right? And then we have these weapons manufacturers. So this is not exactly, you know, the nicest group of people.
Yep.
So to see their night start off with just, you know, choppy waters all the way to shitting and puking themselves while they hear quotes from Karl Marx and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. Like, it's just the most heavy-handed scene in this movie, you know? Like, here's what my movie is about. And this is one of the reasons why I was like, how was this even sold as like this highbrow intellectual comedy when it's like poo poo pee poo? Like, isn't it funny when they're puking and shitting at the same time? Like, yes, it is. It's very funny.
It's very funny. And I think it just really becomes absurd after really that one, because that's when it really breaks loose. And in terms, even the grenade being the demise, how it just really, the luxury ship that we see that is really nice. The rooms in this luxury ship are, you know, just like you'd expect that somebody would pay a lot of money for. But it is just really funny to see once this film takes its ridiculous and absurdness and shows it to you, how it doesn't really bring it back.
Well, there's also a lonely tech millionaire.
Yeah.
Named Yarmo on the ship as well.
He has game, dude.
He'll come up later. But I wanted to kind of round out the cast. There's one more character, but we kind of have to save that until we get to our third act of the movie. Because we've already mentioned Abigail, who she becomes much more important as the film goes on.
Exactly.
But you know, this crazy night, it reminded me of something I would read in a Kurt Vonnegut novel, or even in like a movie that like Wes Anderson would make, where it goes from kind of just a quirky, funny movie to like the shit hits the fan instantly, like a dog being ran over or a dog being shot. You know what I mean? Or like in Kurt Vonnegut novels, it'd be like, oh, we were on a plane and then it crashed and everybody died but me. Well, so it goes. You know, just that like nonchalant way of the absurdity just being like cranked up to a higher level than it even was. So, you know, we have this crazy, crazy night of the shitting and the puking and the ranting between Harrelson and Burrick, right, of their ideologies. And then you think, okay, maybe this is going to calm down for a second, right? Like, where's the movie going to go from here? Nope, they get attacked by pirates. Like, the ship capsizes because they threw one of the grenades that the old couple manufactured. So, like, you know, it's just that's hilarious to me. Be like, I don't know what to tell you, man. If that's not funny, I guess I don't know what funny
Irony
is.
isn't funny to you, right?
So, you know, this pushes our story forward to our third act, and we're left with the survivors of this pirate attack, and this is where the triangle of sadness flips. You know, we haven't really talked about it yet, but the reason this movie is called Triangle of Sadness is a few different reasons, right? So, like we said, it's a takedown of the fashion industry in the beginning. And Triangle of Sadness is a term in the fashion industry, so it's the place between your eyebrows. That space, and how it's when you make a worried or stressed facial expression,
that's
that
what changes,
area
right?
Is you know where your eye focuses. So that's the triangle of sadness. But then the social dynamics and the power structure, you know, that's a pyramid, so that's also a triangle. And then, you know, the sadness that ensues when it flips upside down. You know, so
Correct.
It's a play on words. It's it's a kind of a fashion industry shot. I just really enjoyed the thought that went into this title.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I like that you brought that up.
So, you know, I just wanted to bring it up because this is the turning point, the flipping of the triangle.
Yep.
And I don't know how I really felt about this section of the movie. I do think that second act in that that captain's dinner scene is just so fucking good that maybe this is the movie kind of peaked for me right there.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, okay, whatever. I guess there's more movie after this. But how do you really feel about the once everything has changed?
That's so
do
funny.
You like this part of the movie?
That's so funny because I saw a commentary on this film that like this movie could have ended when the grenade blew up, and they would have like, I was like, yes,
this was fucking rocks.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna say that the third act necessarily makes me like hate this movie, but I will say that I think that's where the heavy-handedness comes, and it displays kind of more of where I think kind of really showing you where that triangle of sadness flipping, and just kind of really giving you examples of how it would be. But I do think it gives you a little too much. And then in terms of it, you know, I think you kind of talked about this with like, I think I haven't watched Old, but kind of like,
Yes, I didn't want to say it, dude.
but I mean, it just kind of comments. You said that's where it kind of reminded you of South Park. Like everybody's just an idiot here.
Yeah.
And okay, I get it, but I do think that's why it's like the 2 hour 45 runtime doesn't seem to be necessary.
It's not helping the movie.
Because I think that by what you're talking about, by the end of the second act, those themes still come across really well. So I don't really know if you necessarily need the American survival episode, but I do
felt like Lost or like Castaway or Survivor. You know what
exactly. I mean? But I will say the only reason I did actually like, okay, it's fine. Like, you know, he's a director. He knows more than me. It's because I think Dolly DeLeon's character really shines in that third act. And
and that's like you said. This is who we wanted, this is what we were saving her for.
Mm-hmm.
The other person that I wanted to bring up was the character of Nelson. Right?
Correct.
He's played by Jean-Christophe Folly,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know if he is a person from the engine room or if he's one of the pirates. Who attacked the ship. And that's another one of the through lines throughout the third act where I'm like, did he? Did he not? You know, because at one point he's shaving Zlato Burik's character, right? And he's like, "Come on, be honest with me. You're a pirate, right?" And you know, earlier on in the movie, he was like, "You're only saying that because I'm black. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're judging me. Like, you don't know who I am. Like, why would you know who I am? I never come out of the engine room, and I'm not even wearing my uniform." But then, you know, later on, he does say some things that kind of are like, "Wait, are you a pirate?" But then, you know, like, look. I'm sure you've worked with or known a person before in your lifetime who had way too much information about something that they shouldn't have information. Like, yo, why do you know so much about selling drugs? Do you sell drugs?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, maybe not. I don't fucking know. Be like, but you sure do know a lot about selling drugs. You know what I mean? So
you have a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge about SpongeBob, right?
Some people, yeah, exactly. Some people just know a lot about things, you know? So it's never really confirmed if he is a pirate or not. But I mean, I like to believe that he is, just because it makes it even funnier.
It does make
he
it
was
funny.
like, shit, now I have to survive with these people.
Yeah, me too. Just because the same thing being like, he just so happened to not be wearing the uniform after it's very strict for everybody to be wearing the uniform.
Yeah, exactly.
And isn't it also like was there any scenes in the steam room? Like, you know?
If anything, it probably was like just a establishing shot.
Because I will
Like 2
say,
seconds.
it kind of reminds me of kind of,
Because you do see the kitchen staff. That's why.
going back a little bit, is the cleaning the sails scene. That was that was really funny, but because that's what I'm talking about. Like, is there even, because he talked about how it's just a motor powered. So
It's a
is there
motor-powered
even
vessel.
yeah,
There's
like
no
is there even
sails
a
on the
steam
ship.
room? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
No, who even knows?
see, so and because they're rich, like, would they even fuck? Because I don't know.
Wait, like, yeah, if this is a motor, is there steam? Like, I don't know that. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So I'm
that's
just
a good enough lie to be like, I can't necessarily call it.
yeah. So I'm just saying is that I do find it funnier that he's there. I agree with you, and I think that's again where I don't hate the third act, but I do think that that's where a lot of people might have issues with the movie, or it does seem like it does more heavy-handed, and it almost kind of beats you with the answer of what this movie's trying to get across, which is, I mean, it's fine, but I do think it kind of does that scene just in the boat where everybody shits themselves is iconic, honestly.
Yeah, like, they put that in the Oscar sizzle reel at the end of the year when they're showing the best scenes. So, like we said, we wanted to talk about Dolly De Leon at this point, and we also wanted, I think we should bring back up Harris Dickinson, because for Carl and Abigail, this is where their stock really rises. You know, stonks are going up at this point. He is the only young, attractive male of the group. And Abigail is now the most powerful person in the group because she's the only one who is actually worth a fuck. Like, who can actually do anything, start a fire, catch a fish. You know, I'm sure she could probably weave some shit together if need be. So now that things have changed, Carl has become everything that he supposedly hated in this dinner scene that we had in the very beginning, you know? And we see that, you know, with the once the triangle flips, that everybody's not so different, you know.
I will.
And it is a little heavy-handed, but go ahead.
No, sorry. I was gonna say I will say that I found interesting as well, because we kind of talked about how a lot of maybe males will watch this movie in the beginning and kind of like, he's right, like what he's talking about, right? But I think it kind of flips on the side that we don't really comment about, that I don't really talk about. It's Charlie Dean's character. She starts to get jealous about the same things that she was like, well, the guy that was the staff member that was working that she found attractive, like he was getting really jealous about it. But then after one point, she also starts to get really jealous, and she gets to a like almost even crazier type of state of mind where she can't really cope with. She's never been in that position,
Especially now, like she is. Well, this sounds bad, but she is basically useless now.
mm-hmm.
You know, because there is no beauty currency on this island
For a
anymore.
woman.
Yeah, for a woman.
Because the woman in power.
There's
A woman
only
is
a
in
woman
power.
in power now,
Yeah.
and she doesn't like pussy. So
and yeah, and so I think I again and just really enjoyed that point of view in the third act. And again, I that's why I think she really did a really great performance for this. Is again, it kind of just flips, and I think it really comment on how, again, being in a ridiculous situation like this, the true colors of what you're worth in a real situation kind of come out. And I think that isn't something that we really talk about, or isn't a point of view that's really presented, because it's really current. You know, I know it's really hard for movies, because it takes a long time to make them, to kind of comment on something that's happening right now. And the film seems to be just really commenting on still something that feels like it's at the current moment.
yeah, it's a very relevant movie. So the character of Abigail, now that she is the matriarch of the island, she has even Yaya says that at one point. She's like, "You've successfully created a matriarchy, like in a few days." Honestly, she's like, "I really respect you." You know, her character, I don't want to say she's like tragic, but she really does, you know, go through a lot, because she was so low for so long in her life. And then once you get the reveal that, I guess this is kind of jumping ahead, but once you get the reveal that this is not a deserted island, that they're on a like a deserted island vacation resort
On the other side.
yeah, that's on the other side of the island, and that they've been, you know, they could have been safe the entire time. We have this really, really interesting moment that's like near the very end of Abigail contemplating if she's going to kill Yaya, and we don't get an answer. But I wanted to know: do you think she kills her, or do you think that she doesn't kill her?
I don't think that she does, just because it seems like she hesitates.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to ask that is because Ruben Östlund himself doesn't give an answer, but Dolly De Leon asked him for permission if it was okay for her to give her take on it, and she says yes. She's like, I do think that she kills her, because, you know, we get that final kind of gut punch of Yaya telling her, like, I could help you. You could be my assistant.
Yeah, it flips
And
again.
and you see how quickly she disregards everything she just said about her, and how the second she sees that elevator shaft and she realizes that now that Yaya is back on top, how quickly is she really going to want to abandon the power that she's been, you know, struggling for her entire life? So yes, she does believe
She thinks so.
that, yeah, she kills her with the rock the same way that Yarmo killed that donkey earlier, like repeated bashes to the head of just this like exhale of just her entire life being taken out on this person.
Yeah,
And, like,
'cause-
whether she deserves it or not is like, okay, obviously not. She doesn't fucking deserve to get her head smashed in, but
But it just symbolizes a bunch of stress of like getting the flip of the triangle again, as we talked about,
yeah, the triangle flipped right back.
and in just a matter of seconds, and it all
So-
just really based off stupidity.
So I didn't really understand the actual ending of this movie of Carl just running through the forest. I mean, maybe I'm a bozo and I didn't get it, but I kind of didn't understand why it didn't just end with the hesitation, that wonderful cliffhanger of did she or did she not?
I agree, but I did just take it as it's a scene. You know, when they do like opening credit scene, and it's always to let the credits roll in. I don't know. I did find it just as weird as you did, because it's not like I feel like he's a character that I ended up feeling like he has answers now. They didn't have before.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't understand that last.
It's not that
sequence.
long. It's like what, like 20
No,
seconds, but
not
still,
even,
it is kind of like, you're right. I thought it should end at the hesitation of did she kill her?
Yeah, so I guess that's just one of the flaws of this movie, honestly, is kind of like jumping the shark, you know what I mean? Like, you already did something really good. Why are you following it up with the more, with the excess? Like, I don't get why there needs to be more excess, like we said, it would be fucking sick if this movie just ended with the shit blowing up. But then to have the third act, and then to have that really powerful scene, and then to just have this what feels like a throwaway running scene, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe I need to watch a Triangle of Sadness explained video, but I really didn't get that scene.
Because I guess and again, just kind of adding to your point, don't really understand it, because people may have their issues with the third act, and even obviously we think it's the weakest, but Dolly De Leon's character really stands out here, and her type of, this is the only part in the movie where I guess we get the quote unquote poor people on top type of like point of view. And the point is already really, really driven in this act. And I think that concluding conversation just really tops that off. But I think that it is just really weird they didn't end it there, because it just seems to be excess for no reason. And it already, the point of her, like, his character isn't the main character at that point, or it doesn't really feel like a character that you really resonate with anymore. It really is more Dolly De Leon's character. So I feel like it almost, why does it end with the person that I don't really feel like is the main character in that act anymore? Or that kind of already left his character into something I'm really feeling like, what is his conclusion to this? Her character seems to be the standout to me.
He's just running away from all the madness. Like, okay. Like I really, really would like to hear it, but I wouldn't say it ruined the movie for me, because bad endings don't really ruin movies for me. It would be nice if movies had exceptional endings, but I enjoyed a good majority of it.
I guess it's because it's not really like
endings are hard to stick, dude.
The ending does feel like is right what you said, like, because it's not like any words are said when he's running away, and it is very short. But I think that's the only reason it doesn't really bug me. But it did arise a question as to, like, why did it end that way? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Ruben Östlund actually helped edit this movie. It was a edit between him and another person. I actually have their name. Mikkel C. Carlson, who's kind of known for also making really like absurd, disturbing stuff. He's made some, I think they were documentaries and also music videos and stuff like that. He's kind of regarded for his disturbing imagery as well. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just, when you get two guys together like this and they have the control of the edit, that they're gonna just do whatever they want. And it's just as simple as artistic expression, but that specifically did not work for me.
You look cool, man.
Hey, and that's all we really want at the end of the day, right? Is for it to look cool.
No, but yeah, like you said, some endings are hard to stick.
Yeah, I mean, they really are, dude. That kind of wraps it up for me. I would say that it was pretty obvious I liked this movie. I just don't think it was the best movie of the year. But who cares? That's arbitrary. That's all stupid anyways.
I will think, because we're coming up on almost the end of the year, and we always have our end of the year review, that I'm surprised that a lot of what I feel like my top movies this year haven't changed since like summer. Like Nope was the last one to shake it up.
I mean, I don't know if this is a strong year or not a strong year. I mean, there's a lot of movies I like this year, but I don't know if they're like 2021 had some like all-timers for me, like it's funny because you brought up Sight and Sound, and like one of the topics of conversation is that, well, if you have new movies in your all-time, then you need to watch more movies or whatever. But there's plenty of old people who will fucking tell you how good 2001 is, or Jaws or whatever, and like I do like the idea of being a cheerleader for the movies I'm seeing now that I do think are going to be important one
Yeah,
day.
exactly.
And I would say maybe 2021 had more of those for me, but I do think that this is a strong year. It's just that for me, at least, it kind of peaked after the Northman, but then Nope was the shot in the arm of adrenaline of like, oh, it's alive, and Top Gun, which it's just been I think maybe it's been an awkward year because of the movies that are on top, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, or The Batman, or Top Gun Maverick, or Nope. A lot of the best films this year did happen to be like studio blockbusters, or Everything Everywhere All at Once being so highly regarded is kind of outside of the norm.
Yeah, it is.
So who knows?
I mean, it's already flipping on its own in the conversation.
Its Triangle of Sadness is already flipped.
Yeah,
it became too popular.
People are like, no, you know what? This is really cringe, actually.
Yeah. Oh wait, you like this? I fucking hate this. So I don't know where this movie's gonna fall. Like I said, I know it's all arbitrary and stupid, and it doesn't mean anything because you mentioned this to me earlier in the week. It's like, why do people think of movies in a competitive fashion? But that's one of the human flaws, right? Is
exactly
being competitive.
I think everybody wants their ideas validated. Like you said, Ruben Östlund would love to get nominated or even obviously win for this. But I do think that what this movie did do for me, at least, is open up to me wanting to watch more of his movies. I haven't watched The Square. You said you were watching it before I came today.
Yeah, I didn't get to finish it. I saw like probably 2/3 of it before you got here.
So, I do think that I am very interested in his style, and I will be tuning into whatever work he does. I did really enjoy this film, and I think this is one that after doing the podcast, doing the episode, I kind of really solidifies how much I like it.
I really like talking about this movie, and I don't know if I might like talking about this movie more than I actually like the movie, but who knows what that even says about me, Like I do enjoy that this has been such a fun conversation to have, and I think that I would say that I like this episode maybe better than some of the ones we've done recently.
I think it's just not so driven on what actually happens in the movie, because the movie kind of just perceives more, after you having known that the director's intention is for this to just be more comedic. I think it really just solidifies that the movie is a well-made comedy, and it always kind of really reminds you that taking things too seriously or wanting things to always be, maybe not always, but wanting to be high art, maybe what you would expect from a Palme d'Or winner, isn't necessarily always the best. And I think that it's refreshing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even like what he said earlier with the American audience thing, or like you said too, like you do need to be reminded sometimes to not be so like snooty about things. It's like that meme is like me, like I'm never proud of being American until some weird ass European has something to say, and then I'm like, whoa, hold up, I'm not trying to be like you though.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, I'm not that lame though.
Nah. Whoa, I'm starting to sound European. Never mind, USA baby.
Because that's why Woody Harrelson's my favorite character in this movie. He's the only one eating. Oh, that was the other point I wanted to make. The second straight week where a hamburger and fries is the most peak meal that I've seen in a movie.
Facts. I can agree. I had In-N-Out earlier today.
Yeah.
And I had a burger yesterday.
So it's the second after the menu where the character I liked the most was like, can I get a burger and some fries? And I was like, damn, that burger looks good.
He's literally me.
And everybody else is eating high-end food, and I'm like, really?
I'm not into high dining. I think he says, or into fine dining. Oh, man. So, I guess we're kind of wrapping this up here. One last thing I wanted to say, it's, you just said, and obviously I reflect this, that I'm very interested in watching more of Ruben Östlund's work. I don't know if this was a joke because, he's obviously a very funny, silly guy. He's already stated that his next movie is called The Entertainment System is Down. And I hope this is true and he wasn't just joking around, but that's what it would be called, and it is about a airplane, like kind of a sociological experiment, but in an airplane. So I'm very excited to see if that is actually real, and I will be tuning in because I do think he's a very, very funny man.
Yeah,
very funny director.
Joachim Trier has his Norway trilogy. I just need the Rich People trilogy from Ruben Östlund.
I mean, you got to watch The Square. That's you'll see that these are kind of recurring themes in his work.
Okay.
And I'm excited to watch his other movie too, Force Majeure, because it takes place in I think a ski resort.
That's his first one, right?
No, it's not his first one, but these last 3 movies are what have made him like extremely popular.
Yeah, his first. Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, he's a guy that I'm looking out for.
The more I talk about it, I guess I do really am like. I guess they just the Palme d'Or critics were like, you know what? Let's give it to this movie. I just think it'll be yeah.
Is that a crime? Is it a crime to just be sick?
Is it a crime to just be funny?
Yeah.
So the more I talk about it, I'm like, because the first time I watched it, I did really walk out. I was really impressed with it, but watching it on the second time, maybe knowing what it's going to do, I was just really looking forward to the scene where everybody, poops.
It's been real nice to shift into comedy after doing so much horror.
Mm-hmm.
So with The Menu and Weird Al and this movie, and we'll be doing The Banshees of Inisherin, which is another. That's fantastic. A very dark comedy. I'm in a good mood, man. I feel like it was nice to end this year with so many comedies.
Yeah. So I don't know. Slightly like these films seems to have like maybe at the moment I don't feel like they're breaking like maybe like The Green Knight was to us, or Dune, but I do enjoy them a lot, and I just think maybe I'll find out later how much I really actually love these movies.
Yeah, definitely. So like we keep saying, it's almost the end of the year, so there's some exciting stuff coming. I know we're gonna do Decision to Leave. We're gonna do The Banshees of Inisherin. These are probably gonna be the next 2 episodes. We'll definitely do a top 10 or something like that, or just at least a lobby talk so we can talk about our favorite movies of the year. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that's how I'm gonna have to covertly insert Avatar 2 into this podcast. I'm gonna try my best, people. I know that Alvaro does not really show much interest in this movie. I don't understand why, but I will try to, for all my Avatar heads, all my Navi-pilled people out there, I will try to get it in.
I was thinking about
I will sneak in James Cameron and the Blue Cat people through the back door.
When we watched the trailer of like during the summer, like Avatar,
Avatar. Man, as a hotel manager, dude, I find it kind of weird. You don't want to let in the Blue Cat people. What the hell's going on with that?
I don't know, man. There's only okay.
Anyways, we'll get to it. Don't worry, I'm gonna sneak that shit into my top 10. Thanks for checking in. Like, subscribe, comment. I got a shill. Do all the stuff so that we can keep the lights on in this hotel.
Yep.
But yeah.
I mean,
really excited.
We have Gabriel. We have Gabriel in this hotel. It takes a lot of electricity.
Yeah. Gabriel's sucking up all the electricity, man. And that's why I can't do Avatar, because I already got Malignant. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.